A millionaire mother froze at the playground when a black man made her mute daughter speak for the first time. My God, get your daughter away from that man right now. Patricia Whitmore's shrill voice cut through the morning air at the exclusive Meadowbrook Hills playground like a knife. Her perfectly manicured fingernails pointed straight at Marcus Thompson, a 35-year-old black man crouched beside a 7-year-old girl. Little Emma Richardson had just spoken her first word in 3 years. A single word that made her mother, billionaire Victoria Richardson, stop breathing for a moment. Hello? Victoria couldn't process it. Emma hadn't spoken since the accident that killed her father. And now, in front of a complete stranger, she had broken 3 years of silence. Victoria, you can't let your daughter interact with people like that, Patricia whispered, lowering her voice just enough to sound conspiratorial. What kind of example are you setting? Marcus rose slowly, his hands still dusty from the garden where he worked as a landscaper. His eyes met Victoria's for a brief moment, and she saw something that unsettled her deeply. Not anger, not embarrassment, but an unshakable calm, as if he had faced this exact moment 1,000 times before. "Mommy, he heard me," Emma whispered, her voice small but crystal clear. "He really heard me, Javier?" Victoria swallowed hard. As CEO of Richardson Tech, she had poured millions into research on child communication, hiring the best therapists, neurologists, and trauma specialists. And now, a gardener had accomplished in 2 minutes what years of treatment had failed to do. "Emma, come here now," Patricia demanded, extending her hand impatiently. "Your mother needs to take you home." But Emma didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on Marcus, who smiled kindly as he packed his worn tools into a box. "Thank you," Emma said again, louder this time. Marcus nodded respectfully. "Ooh, it was a pleasure to meet you, little Emma. Keep using that beautiful voice." He bowed slightly to Victoria. "Have a good day, Mrs. Richardson." As he walked away, pushing his tool cart, Victoria noticed for the first time the scars etched along his arms and the slight limp in his left leg. There was something about this man that went far beyond the appearance of a simple gardener. Patricia shook her head disapprovingly. Victoria's mind raced. Her daughter, her little Emma, had just spoken for the first time in years, and it wasn't the carefully controlled environment of her therapy sessions. It had happened outside in the sun with a man she barely knew. Patricia, still glaring, whispered to Victoria, "This is inappropriate." "He's not trained." Victoria's hand trembled as she reached for Emma. The girl's eyes, wide and sparkling, refused to leave Marcus. "Mommy," she said softly, "he listened to me. I talked." Victoria swallowed hard. She could feel the weight of the world shifting around her. This was more than a miracle. It was a revelation. Emma had been trapped in silence, not from lack of intelligence, but from fear and trauma. And Marcus, somehow, he had broken through. Emma took a hesitant step toward Marcus. Patricia gasped. Victoria, frozen, could only watch. Marcus knelt once more, leveling himself with the child. His voice was low, steady, and calm. "You have a voice, Emma," he said, "and it's meant to be heard." Emma repeated the words, stronger this time. "My voice is meant to be heard." Patricia's lips pressed into a thin line. "Victoria, now is the time to leave," she said, her tone sharp. Victoria didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on Marcus. There was something in him, something disciplined, kind, almost extraordinary. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with hope. Emma reached out and placed a small hand on Marcus's arm. Thank you," she whispered. Marcus's face softened. Keep speaking, little one. Your words are important." As he pushed his cart away, Victoria noticed again the scars on his arms, the slight limp in his left leg, the way he carried himself with quiet strength. This wasn't just a gardener. This was a man who had faced hardship, who understood struggle, and who had taught her daughter to find her voice in minutes. Victoria's breath caught in her throat. She looked down at Emma, then back at Marcus, disappearing into the distance. Something deep inside her shifted. For the first time in years, she felt powerless. But in the best way possible. Emma tugged at her sleeve. Mommy, can I see him again?" Victoria's mind raced. How could she explain this? How could she control a moment that refused to be contained? Patricia muttered something about boundaries and a protocol, but Victoria didn't hear her. Her eyes were fixed on her daughter and on the man who had reminded her what hope could look like. And in that quiet playground, something unspoken passed between mother and daughter, and a stranger who had changed their lives forever. Emma didn't flinch. Her small chin lifted, her eyes locked on Marcus. "I just wanted to say hello," she whispered, her voice steady now, strong enough that Patricia recoiled slightly. Victoria stepped forward, her heels crunching on the gravel. Patricia, enough." Her tone left no room for argument. "My God." The other mothers murmured behind their gates, some shocked, some scandalized, but Victoria didn't care. Her daughter had spoken. She had finally spoken. And no one, not even Patricia, could take that moment away. Patricia opened her mouth, but Victoria held up a hand. "Emma is not your project, Yeri. She's not anyone's experiment. She is my daughter, and she will speak to whomever she wants." Emma's gaze softened as she looked at her mother, then back at Marcus. "Mommy, he listened," she said again, the words carrying more weight than any reprimand could. Marcus crouched down, careful not to loom over the girl. "Emma," he said gently, "your voice is your power. Never let anyone make you afraid to use it." Patricia huffed, crossing her arms, clearly unconvinced. Victoria, you can't seriously support this behavior. He is not qualified to..." Qualified?" Victoria's voice cut through her like a whip. 3 years of therapy and countless specialists couldn't make her speak. And yet this man, working here, quietly respected her, and she found her voice. That is qualification enough. Patricia opened her mouth again, but Victoria had already turned to Emma. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go inside," she said softly. Emma hesitated, tugging at Marcus's sleeve. "Will I see you again?" Marcus smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and carried warmth and trust. "Of course, little one. I'll always be around." As they walked away, Patricia muttered under her breath about boundaries and a protocol, but her words fell into the wind. Victoria knew something that Patricia would never understand. Sometimes rules and titles mean nothing in the face of real connection. Later that evening, Victoria sat alone in her office, staring at the playground where Emma had spoken for the first time. She couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. The calm in his eyes, the scars on his arms, the slight limp that told stories of battles she would never know. He was more than a gardener. He was a man who had seen the worst of life and yet treated her daughter like a person first. And Victoria knew deep down that whatever secrets Marcus carried, they weren't something to fear. They were something to respect. If you think a gardener couldn't change the life of a billionaire's daughter, stay tuned. What Marcus does next will challenge every assumption about power, privilege, and the kind of courage that doesn't make headlines, but changes lives forever. Marcus's eyes didn't waver. "Yes, ma'am, I have." His voice was steady, calm, and carried the weight of experience. Victoria noticed the subtle way he shifted his weight, careful and deliberate, like every move was measured. Patricia snorted again. "I highly doubt that. And you've certainly never worked with my kind of children." Emma tugged on Victoria's sleeve. "Mommy, he helps me," she said softly, but firmly. "I feel safe with him." Victoria crouched to her daughter's level, her gaze sweeping from Emma to Marcus. "I see that, Emma, and that matters more than anything Patricia thinks." Patricia's face tightened. "Mrs. Richardson, this is a matter of protocol." Victoria cut her off, voice icy now. "No, Patricia, this is a matter of my daughter's well-being. Rules and protocols don't matter if they silence a child who has been through hell. And Marcus," she paused, studying him closely. Marcus knows exactly how to help her because he sees her as a person first. That is more important than anything else." Marcus gave a slight nod, acknowledging her words without saying a thing. But Victoria noticed his jaw tense, the way his hands curled slightly at his sides. He was calm, but ready. Patricia's eyes darted nervously around the small crowd gathering near the playground. "Oh, I don't know what to say. This isn't right." Victoria stood slowly, placing a protective hand on Emma's shoulder. "What isn't right is you trying to control who my daughter speaks to." Patricia. "You see a gardener. I see someone who gave my child her voice back. That is worth more than your rules, your reputation, or your fear of someone different." Emma reached out and held Marcus's hand again. Thank you," she whispered. Marcus's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "No thanks needed, little one. You did all the hard work. You just needed someone to listen." Patricia took a step back, her perfect composure cracking. "This isn't over," she said through gritted teeth, before retreating toward the gate. Victoria watched her go, then turned to Marcus. "I need to know who you really are." Marcus's calm demeanor didn't falter. "All in good time, Mrs. Richardson." Right now, my job is making sure Emma knows she can speak and that she's safe. Everything else can wait. Emma beamed up at him, her small hands gripping his. Can we play tomorrow, too? Marcus knelt, looking her in the eyes. Of course, Emma. We'll play as long as you want. Victoria stepped closer, studying him once more. That quiet, collected man with scars, a limp, and the calm authority of someone who had seen too much. He was no ordinary gardener. And Victoria knew one thing for certain. Emma's life had just changed forever. The camera would linger on the playground as Marcus and Emma walked among the swings and flowers, their connection unspoken but powerful. Victoria's voiceover would say, "Sometimes it isn't privilege or money that changes a child's life, it's someone willing to truly see them." The other women gasped softly, clutching their teacups as if Patricia had just whispered a scandalous secret. "A disruptive element?" one of them asked, voice trembling slightly. Do you mean a gardener?" Yes," Patricia said, voice sharp, cutting through the tension. "He is not only interfering with the children, he is undermining the authority of the Residents Association. And apparently the mother of the child herself is siding with him." Another woman shook her head. Mrs. Richardson, her daughter hasn't spoken in years, and now she's talking." Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "That's exactly the problem. This gardener is manipulating our rules, charming the Richardson family, and setting a precedent we cannot allow." Meanwhile, Victoria walked quietly down the hallway of her penthouse, F1 pressed to her ear. "Marcus, keep Emma close today," she said softly, her tone revealing neither fear nor uncertainty. "I don't know what Patricia is planning, but I do know you've earned my trust. That is all that matters." Back at the meeting, Patricia leaned forward, eyes blazing. "Ladies, if we do not act now, this man will embed himself deeper into the community. We must confront him. Formally, he cannot be allowed to continue unchecked. I will draft a formal complaint citing inappropriate interactions with minors, violation of staff protocols. Everything we need to get him removed." Immediately, Victoria's voice echoed from the hallway as she descended the steps. "And I will counter that complaint," she said, her words calm but sharp as a blade. Marcus Thompson is not only innocent, he is a hero. And if any of you attempt to threaten him or my daughter, you will find that appearances are not the measure of someone's character." Patricia's face drained of color. "Victoria, this is outrageous. You cannot interfere with the board's decisions." Victoria held her gaze steadily. "I am not interfering. I am protecting what matters. And right now, that is my child." At that moment, Marcus returned from the garden, Emma skipping along beside him. He had no idea of the storm brewing inside the Richardson penthouse, only that his little student was laughing for the first time in years, and that was enough. Victoria stepped aside, letting Marcus and Emma walk past. He glanced at her, curiosity and a hint of caution in his eyes. She nodded slightly. "Trust me," her expression said. Marcus bent down to Emma, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Ready to water the roses?" he asked. Emma's eyes sparkled at Emma. "Yes, and I'm going to make them grow big and strong." Behind them, the storm of Patricia Whitmore's fury was gathering. But for Marcus and Emma, the world was simple again. Laughter, sunlight, and the first words of hope spoken aloud. Victoria whispered to herself almost under her breath. Some people judge too soon. Some people underestimate the impossible. The camera would linger on Marcus's steady hands, the scars that told stories, and Emma's tiny fingers wrapped around his. The narrator's voice would say, "Sometimes the people who can change a life the most are the ones we never expect to notice." And sometimes courage isn't measured by medals, but by listening. Marcus's eyes flicked toward Victoria, silently asking if she was ready. She met his gaze and nodded ever so slightly. Patricia took a step closer, the camera clutched in her hands, her expression a mix of outrage and triumph. We need full records of his interactions. I want dates, times, everything. This behavior is completely unacceptable." Marcus bent slightly, lowering his voice so only Victoria could hear. "They're watching closely. That's fine. Let them watch." Victoria frowned. "Are you prepared for what comes next?" Marcus straightened again, his voice calm but firm. "I've been ready for a lot worse." Patricia snapped a photo of Marcus and Emma together. "Ha! Perfect! This will go straight to the board. They will see the violations clearly." Emma tugged gently at Marcus's hand. "Why is she taking pictures of us?" Marcus knelt down to her level. "Some people are afraid of things they don't understand, little one." That's all. Victoria stepped forward, voice steady and unwavering. Marcus Thompson is not a threat, and neither is Emma. You all need to understand that fear and prejudice are not evidence of wrongdoing. Patricia's face turned red, but she didn't speak. Margaret Thornton muttered under her breath, glancing at the camera in Patricia's hand. Uh, do we really want to provoke her? Victoria ignored them, crouching beside Marcus and Emma. Emma, tell me again, what did you learn from Marcus today? Emma's little face lit up. I learned that if you water the plants carefully, they will grow strong. And I can use my words too. See, she spoke clearly, joy shining in her voice. Patricia scowled, the briefcase shaking slightly in her hands. This is exactly why rules exist, she snapped, though her voice wavered. Marcus's calm authority filled the space between them. Rules are important, yes. But compassion, guidance, understanding, those are stronger than any rule, Mrs. Whitmore. Victoria placed a hand lightly on Marcus's arm. Let's document truth, not fear. If anyone doubts it, we have nothing to hide. Patricia looked between them, mouth open, realizing that the perception she had tried to enforce was crumbling before her eyes. Marcus Thompson was no ordinary gardener. He was confident, controlled, and completely capable of protecting the child he had inspired to speak for the first time in nearly 2,000 days. And Victoria Richardson, for the first time in years, felt the weight lift off her shoulders. Someone had listened to her daughter. Someone had believed in her. Someone she could finally trust completely. Emma clapped her hands and laughed, tugging Marcus toward the flowers. Patricia, fuming silently, realized that all her carefully plotted schemes might not work. Not with Victoria, and Marcus united. The camera would linger on Marcus's calm, commanding presence, the little girl's joyous face, and Victoria's steady, approving gaze. The narrator would say, sometimes the people who change a life aren't the ones with authority, they're the ones who see the heart beneath the surface. I understand your position, Mrs. Whitmore, Marcus said evenly, his gaze sweeping the room. But I believe the residents have the right to hear the truth before making decisions that affect lives. A murmur ran through the crowd. Patricia's face twisted in anger. The truth? You are here to serve, not lecture. Marcus reached into his pocket and calmly produced a folder. The gold letters on the top caught the light. Department of Defense Service Record. Marcus Thompson. He placed it on the table in front of Victoria. Everything you've claimed about me, about my background, is documented here. Every mission, every award, every time I saved lives under fire. I've trained to assess threats to protect those under my care. That includes children. Victoria's jaw dropped, but she tried to hide her shock behind a composed expression. Emma squeezed her mother's hand, eyes wide in awe. Patricia snatched the folder. This can't be real. You're lying. Victoria stepped forward, voice firm. I don't think I am. Marcus, would you allow me to read the summary aloud? Marcus nodded. By all means. Victoria cleared her throat and began reading the key points. 3 tours as a combat medic in Afghanistan saved 17 civilians from a bombed hospital emergency field surgery without anesthesia for 14 hours, decorated for valor and life-saving operations. Multiple commendations for bravery and medical expertise. The room went silent. The other residents shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some lowered their heads, others whispered nervously. Patricia's face turned bright red. This changes nothing. You may have served, but you are still here as a gardener. That doesn't give you. Marcus interrupted calmly but firmly, his voice now carrying authority that made every head turn. Being a gardener does not define my worth. Neither does my military service. What defines me is integrity, skill, and my willingness to act when someone is in need. I saved lives before, and I will protect those entrusted to me now. That includes Emma. A few of the residents began murmuring in agreement. Margaret Thornton looked embarrassed, her earlier smugness fading. Victoria closed the folder, placing it gently back on the table, lighting it guide. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, voice carrying across the hall, Marcus Thompson has earned my trust and my daughter's trust. If you cannot see that, it is your failure, not his. Emma jumped up, running to Marcus's side. I told you, Mommy. Marcus is my friend. He helped me talk. Marcus knelt, hugging her lightly. And I will always be here for you, Emma. Always. The room fell into stunned silence. Patricia's carefully built authority had crumbled. She sank into her chair, pale and defeated. No one wanted to challenge Marcus now. Victoria looked around. eyes sharp and commanding. This meeting is adjourned. And let this be a lesson. Judging someone without understanding their story can cost more than reputation. It can cost lives. As the residents filed out, muttering among themselves, Marcus straightened, brushing dirt from his uniform. Victoria placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "You are incredible," she whispered. Marcus smiled faintly. "I did what had to be done. And now everyone here knows who I really am and what I can do." Emma clapped, laughing. "Can we go play in the garden now?" Victoria laughed softly and Marcus nodded. "Yes, little one." "Let's go." "Yes, little one." The camera would linger on Marcus's calm, composed figure, Victoria's approving gaze, and Emma running freely in the garden. The narrator would say, Sometimes the truth is hidden beneath appearances, but courage, skill, and heart will always shine through for those who are ready to see." The room fell into stunned silence. Patricia's face drained of color, her carefully constructed authority crumbling with every word Victoria spoke. Margaret Thornton and Catherine Blackwell exchanged nervous glances. No one had expected this level of preparation, this precision. Victoria's eyes locked onto Patricia. "And yet, despite your assumptions, your prejudices, my daughter trusts him. I trust him." Emma speaks, laughs, and learns because of Dr. Thompson. That is the reality you cannot deny. Patricia opened her mouth, but Marcus raised a hand. "May I add something?" His voice, calm yet commanding, filled the hall. "You have accused me of intentions I do not have. You've labeled me based on skin color, social standing, and assumptions. Yet here is the truth. I have risked my life to save children, civilians, and soldiers alike. I am here to protect your families, and I have done nothing but that." He stepped closer to Patricia, maintaining eye contact. "If your goal was safety, the evidence of my competence is before you. If your goal was prejudice, then the results are just as clear." Whispers spread throughout the crowd. Patricia's hands trembled as she clutched her notes, realizing that everything she had built on suspicion and fear was collapsing in front of the community. Victoria placed a firm hand on Marcus's shoulder. "He's not just my daughter's hero. He's a professional, a decorated war veteran, a trained medic, and a man of integrity. If you cannot see that, it is not him who is failing. It is your judgment." Emma ran to Marcus and wrapped her small arms around his waist. "I knew you were my friend," she shouted. The laughter of a child, pure and unrestrained, echoed through the hall, punctuating every word Victoria had spoken. Marcus looked down at her and smiled softly. "And I will always be your friend, Emma." Patricia slumped into her chair, humiliated. Margaret and Catherine avoided eye contact, their whispers fading into embarrassed silence. The residents, many of whom had only been quiet observers, began nodding in approval, realizing they had been swayed by prejudice rather than truth. Victoria closed her briefcase with a decisive click. "This meeting is over. I suggest that everyone here reflect on what they've witnessed today. True courage, true competence, and true character are not measured by wealth, appearances, or social standing. They are measured by actions, and Marcus Thompson's actions speak louder than any rumor or assumption." Marcus straightened, adjusting his uniform, and gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Emma skipped beside him, laughing and chattering freely, her voice no longer trapped by fear. As the crowd dispersed, Patricia sat silently, staring at her hands, knowing that she had underestimated a man whose skill, courage, and heart far exceeded anything she had imagined. Marcus had not only defended himself, but had also exposed the biases and hypocrisy of the entire elite community. Outside, the sun shone through the trees lining the condominium, and for the first time in days, Emma's laughter blended with the warm morning light. Marcus walked beside Victoria, eyes scanning the surroundings with the calm vigilance of a soldier, but this time for peace, for safety, for a little girl who had found her voice again. The narrator would conclude, "Some heroes do not wear medals in plain sight." Some change the world quietly, with actions that cannot be measured by wealth or title, but by the lives they touch and the voices they restore. Months turned into a year, and the transformation Marcus had sparked continued to ripple through Meadowbrook Hills. Dr. Marcus Thompson Park became a sanctuary, a place where children of all backgrounds could play freely, learn, and grow without fear. Emma's laughter became a familiar melody echoing across the neighborhood, a symbol of hope and resilience. Marcus now spent his mornings at Richardson Tech overseeing programs that bridge social gaps and empowered children with communication challenges. In the afternoons, he returned to the park, coaching, teaching, and simply being a presence of guidance and care. Victoria, inspired by Marcus, became a fierce advocate for social inclusion, spearheading initiatives that encourage businesses and communities to see beyond color, status, and appearance. Together, they formed a partnership that extended far beyond friendship, a bond built on trust, respect, and shared purpose. Patricia Whitmore, Margaret Thornton, and Catherine Blackwell faded into irrelevance, their arrogance dismantled not by confrontation, but by the undeniable proof of Marcus's impact. Their attempts at intimidation, prejudice, and manipulation had backfired spectacularly. Their reputations, power, and social standing were permanently diminished, a cautionary tale whispered among the remaining residents. One crisp autumn evening, Marcus and Victoria sat on a bench at the park, watching Emma teach a younger child how to speak clearly, how to take confident steps in life. Marcus held Victoria's hand gently, smiling. "I never imagined my life would take this turn," he said. Victoria squeezed his hand. Neither did I. But the world needed someone like you, Marcus. Someone who could turn scars into strength, silence into voices, and prejudice into change. Emma ran up, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Uncle Marcus, you promised you'd be at the recital." "I'll always be there for you," Marcus said, lifting her into his arms. As the sun dipped below the skyline, painting the city in warm golden light, Marcus reflected on how far he had come. From invisible gardener to celebrated hero, from underestimated veteran to influential leader, he had proven that true strength lies not in revenge, but in building, in nurturing, in lifting others so they can find their voice. And so, in a world quick to judge by appearances, Marcus Thompson became a living testament that courage, wisdom, and kindness can overcome prejudice. Not with force, not with wealth, but with heart, skill, and unwavering integrity. The narrator concluded, "In life, never underestimate those you judge by sight alone. Some heroes don't announce themselves. Some change the world quietly, one life at a time. And when they do, the echoes of their deeds are louder than any accusation, stronger than any prejudice, and brighter than any spotlight."